Hello and welcome to the latest Travel Weekly webcast, where we're looking at the current state of play for the travel industry and efforts being made to restart tourism. I'm Katie McGonagle, features editor at Travel Weekly, and today I'm joined by a panel of experts in the millennial travel sector to talk about that younger travel market and whether millennials really will be among the first to travel again. To do that, I'm joined by Andy McKay, co-founder and chief executive of Ibiza Rocks Group, also by Donna Jeavons, director of marketing and sales for youth adventure operator Contiki, and by Nathan Cable, co-founder and co-chief executive of party holiday specialist Party Hard Travel. So first of all, let's just see who it is we're talking about when we say millennials. So who do you guys think counts as a millennial, or even now more of a Gen Z traveller? And I'd also like to know, is that a definition you find helpful, or does it sometimes kind of detract from the huge variety of people and travel styles within that sector? Perhaps we'll start off with Andy on that one.
I mean, I don't know. I don't go too much into the marketing terms, Gen Z, millennial. I mean, I'm very focused in everything I do. I think 20-somethings. I know we have some 18, 19-year-olds, but I kind of think 20-somethings. We have a significant market in the 30-somethings, and I kind of ignore the thoughts and feelings of 40 plus, not because it just doesn't seem to be that relevant to the Ibiza Rocks youth market. So yeah, to me, it's all about 20-somethings.
Great. And Nathan, I mean, obviously your audience is kind of, probably about 20-something. You probably even go down to the kind of student market as well, the 18, 19-year-olds.
Yeah, we're basically the pre-Ibiza Rock market. We specialise in the 17 to 22. So 95% of our passengers are actually between 17 and 22. So if we were to just group a big, Gen Z or the millennials, then we'd lose a lot of money in the ads, because obviously we're currently targeting the 17 to 22. So if we were to extend it out to 18 to 30, I think we'd wouldn't get as big a return as we are at the minute.
And Donna, obviously coming from the adventure side, I mean, your audience might skew just a little bit more towards that mid-20s into their 30s, because they're looking for that slightly different experience.
I would say, we definitely have a broad range, right, from 18 up until 35. And I think particularly for Contiki, it is important to segment. And we definitely do try and distinguish between Gen Z and millennials, because they have different ways of interacting through social media, different wants and needs. But I think within those two categories, there's very different life stages. We broadly kind of target a student market with our Iconic Essentials product, which is more of a budget product, which can be tailored to what people are looking for, whereas our older demographic would be looking, as you said, much more for sort of the adventurous product, more in-depth cultural experiences. So how we message and market those trips depend on the targets that we're going after, and we definitely segment our marketing campaigns based on that.
Yeah, of course. And thinking, again, kind of still talking pre-pandemic, it would just be interesting to kind of set the millennial and younger traveller market in a bit of context. So how have holidays for younger travellers changed over the past few years? We've seen the rise of social media, all sorts of different factors changing the way we like to travel. So what factors do millennials and Gen Z take into account when choosing a holiday? Nathan, perhaps we'll start with you with your slightly younger market, and then we'll kind of graduate towards the other ages.
So I'd say that the experience-based side of it is definitely coming out. So maybe 10 years ago, someone might be like, I'm going to go to Zante for a party holiday, and just think of like the sun and the drinking. Whereas now it's much more about the events and the content that's actually happening in these destinations. So I think that's a massive factor as to how people are booking now.
Yeah, it's that kind of desire for, Instagram friendly experiences and that kind of thing. Is that something you're also taking into account, Andy?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's interesting because we've looked at the transition, because I've been, across from starting with manumission to Ibiza Rocks. We look at the transformation. I think actually Nathan's business, I mean, what tour operators, it used to be those youth brands. It was Club 1830 was the flag bearer. It was 20s, it was Freestyle, it was Escapades. All the big youth brands, the Air Tours, the Thomas Cooks, if you go back, they all had their own youth brands, and they were doing their packages, and they were packaging their events. And I think in the social media era, things have changed a lot, because you actually have to sell good things, not bad things, because there is social feedback. So when I met Nathan, obviously at Excel last year, and what you see is it's in the age of social feedback, you have to do things differently. I think the USP that youth tour, the big boy tour operators had, it just fell away. And when I was in a meeting with TUI board of directors one time, and they said to me that youth travel was basically marginally more interesting to them than selling an aircraft seat, and they literally used it to get the third rotation out of an aircraft. They had no passion, value, or love for their customer whatsoever. They just thought, well, they'll land at 4 a.m. in Ibiza or in Zante or whatever, and be okay with it, so we can get an aircraft to travel late. So I think the evolution has been absolutely huge, and where we've focused on, we took it from this brand-led thing to this physical thing. There is physically an Ibiza Rocks hotel. There is physically an event experience, and I think, how can you compete with that physical experience? And I think that helped push all the big boys out of business in the youth. So I think that's the evolution.
I definitely think.
Sorry.
So I was going to say, experience is definitely the buzzword, for both, I think, the millennials and Gen Z, and I agree. It's about that's what the youth customer is looking for these days. From our perspective, it's about local, authentic experiences. So getting under the skin of a country, maybe it's a local cooking class. In Berlin, we have a walking tour, which it's a historical walking tour, but it's led by a Syrian refugee, and talking about the differences or the similarities between his life and how he came to be in Berlin versus the Second World War and all the events that happened there. So, I think self-development and learning about other cultures is definitely something that's big amongst our travellers. The other thing I would say is sort of sustainability and conscious travel. We're definitely seeing the need to, call to action from particularly the Generation Z, who, they're very much the woke generation. They want to see social change. They believe in causes, and the demand is there really to sort of bring that product to life. And one thing we've committed to over the next couple of years is to ensure that we have what we call a Contiki Cares experience on every trip. So we have 3 pillars: people, planet, wildlife, and it enables our travellers, as part of their trip, to give back to the local community or the wildlife whilst they're on their trip.
Yeah, and it's interesting because obviously some of those trends are, present across different age groups, wanting local experiences, wanting to be socially responsible, but it does show that new generation of travellers who's coming up are going to embody that. So if anyone, if you want to future-proof your business a bit, you've really got to embrace that, haven't you? Yeah, and also the social media side. I mean, I guess you can't bring your phone into a phone party, so it's a bit hard to do Instagram photos and that. So like looking at the current context, obviously travel, is on hold for now for everyone, but a lot of experts are predicting that the millennial generation might be among the first to start traveling again. Would you guys agree with that? And you're all in touch with customers daily. What kind of feedback have you been getting from your customers about how likely they are to travel and when they might feel comfortable doing that?
Well, we're on sale. We've already announced. I mean, we are opening our Ibiza Rocks Hotel, indeed Pikes, which is a different market, but we're opening Ibiza Rocks Hotel on the 1st of July. We just did a big piece of market research over the weekend, SurveyMonkey across all our channels. We got 9,000 responses in 48 hours. We're about to release the results, but ultimately, 80% of our customers are very keen to come to Ibiza. 3/4 of our customers have no problem getting on an aircraft. 50% of them don't even have conditions attached to that. About 1/4 of them are asking for simplistic things like face masks. We're seeing lots of trends. It's very, very interesting that the younger the customer is, the harder they found lockdown mentally. So if you look at Nathan's audience and the bottom end of Ibiza Rocks' audience, more than half of them are saying they found it tough, not too bad. They found it tough. And when you're drilling into that, the mental health aspects, and this correlates with the questions that we asked about pubs as well. What we're finding is the younger they are, the more important the pubs and the social life is. The younger people are, the more important their social interactions are. And as people get older, we saw it progressively become less of an issue. So it was obviously people were commenting. So we got thousands of comments, and you know, if you read some of the comments, I mean, I could probably pull some off, but you know, anxiety, people talking about how they used to cope with their anxiety and they found it uncontrollable, and then they're talking about as they start to integrate back into normal life, you know, you're getting comments about people literally saying that they're finding it difficult to do the simple functions that they used to do. So the hardship and the downside of lockdown, particularly for youth, I think is something that's not perhaps been dealt with enough. Everybody's talking about the older generations and the trouble they've got, but I think there is a little bit of a lack of thought about the effect on the very young, and also, you know, let's face it, this is the generation that is physically going to pay for this lockdown over the next, you know, many decades. So that was really interesting. And what we also found is, in terms of the experiences of going abroad, yes, Ibiza was popular. Yes, they're ready to travel, but there was a real desire for outdoors. You know, the vast majority of people were very happy to get involved in outdoor activities, whereas less than half of them were interested in the idea of being inside in a nightclub. So I think we're seeing a really different dynamic of what tourism during this COVID phase is. But I think that the appetite is incredibly strong with the younger market. I mean, you know, as they get older, it petered off to it fairly rapidly.
So yeah, I would definitely agree with that, Andy. We've also surveyed our travellers, and we're seeing over 70% of them would travel by the end of the year. So the demand is there. I think mental health is a big conversation, particularly amongst the youth generation, and I also agree that maybe that hasn't been talked about enough. We've actually recently partnered with Movember and put out some really nice social content around starting the conversation, talking to friends and family if you are struggling, and how people can look after their mental well-being. And I think actually, you know, one of our USPs is social travel, and I think that's the thing across all of our brands is, you know, that social context and wanting to you know, mix with other people, meet with other people from different backgrounds, and particularly I think right now is travel with friends as well. I think we're starting to see more of a trend towards sort of multi-person travel, whereas previously we tend to do around 60 to 70% solo travel, but we're definitely seeing more friends and couples wanting to travel with us, I think, just to restart those relationships after having to have them via Zoom for the last couple of months.
Yeah, knowing how vital travel is to particularly a younger generation, people doing kind of several trips a year, it sounds very sensible that they would be seeing that as, you know, an absolute core part of their life that they want to get back to, and, you know, using it as an opportunity to reunite with friends. Nathan, I'm sure you've probably seen that as well with some of your group bookings. Yeah,
we obviously we had to cancel the whole of June, and we saw a lot of rebookings for this summer. Some people are still a bit wary about the 2-week quarantine, and they just want like a clear message to indicate when that's going to be over before they do rebook for this summer. But
1st of July, be fine.
Yeah. Yeah, so hopefully it is first. Well, I've heard the 29th of June the routes will open back up again. So yeah, hopefully we get a clear message out in the next couple of weeks, and then we can just push a lot of marketing for the last minute bookers.
Yeah, that sounds great. And Andy, you mentioned there being an appetite for outdoor experiences. Are there any other kinds of travel that you think will potentially bounce back first before other, you know, sort of indoor or city breaks or that kind of thing, which might be a little bit less appealing in the current climate?
I think anything escapist youth travel. I mean, I just think, you know, it's interesting, you know, the opportunities in this COVID pivot we're all living in, where we have to try and think, well, those 7 doors are closed. Which ones can we push open that we couldn't normally? I mean, we're having high level conversations with both Ryanair and British Airways, which we probably normally wouldn't be able to, because our audience will get on an aeroplane. And normally that isn't so much, but suddenly it's like, wow, you've got an audience that physically is not got a problem getting on an airplane. And it is that is really interesting. And certainly the feedback I've had from both airlines is they're traveling with the quarantine, whether the quarantine drops or not, the flights are still happening. And the only problem they've got is, well, this was a couple of weeks ago, was getting an appetite for people to get on those planes. And what we're seeing is, now that we've announced, our customers are booking anyway. I think, you know, maybe 2 weeks ago, they were seeing the picture wasn't, the bookings weren't bad, they were going backwards. So there weren't any bookings, there was more cancellations than bookings. Now they're seeing positive movement. Now you're seeing confirmed flights in the marketplace. And these flights, I believe and think, are going to fly come what may now, the more reduced numbers. And I think the challenge we've now got is, for instance, there's 23 aircraft a week landing from the UK with Ryanair into Ibiza. You know, put that into perspective, you know, that's 5 flights from Stansted. Sorry, I think it's Stansted. 5 flights from Stansted, from London. 5 flights from London a week into Ibiza. You know, there was probably 7 a day last year this time. So now it's about getting capacity up as fast as possible. And I think, you know, that's going to be the challenge. So yeah, I also do believe and think that the quarantine and these air bridges will be in place by the end of June. So I've stopped worrying about that. I'm now worried about how do we increase the capacity as fast as possible.
Yeah, and Donna, you know, with your you know, more adventure product, are you ramping up in any particular destinations or particular styles of products, or are you kind of just holding back and waiting to see what looks most likely to sell in the short to medium term?
We are definitely looking at our options. I think because we have such a broad range of products across, you know, most of the world, we can, you know, fortunately pivot depending on which countries open up first. And I think that will ultimately be what it comes down to. But I think, as Andy said, we're looking at sort of the more outdoor products. You know, sailing is still seeming to trend well, island hopping, even things like ski. You know, the ski season will be upon us before we know it. And I think maybe some people have written off the summer season. Hopefully not, and hopefully we can still travel, but people thinking a bit further ahead and thinking, okay, well, the next trip I would take is a ski holiday. And we have a chalet down in Austria, so that's also something we're looking at. Obviously skiing is outdoors, it's a fairly social distance sport, except for when you're doing your après ski. So I think, yeah, just looking at how we tailor product and obviously enhance sort of hygiene protocols as well, to make sure that we, you know, our travellers feel safe and comfortable travelling with us.
Yeah, and absolutely, those preparations that you guys are all putting in place to try and kind of cater for that market in the short to medium term are really important. Nathan, Andy, I know you mentioned some of the preparations you are putting in place, you know, bubbles of people and that kind of thing when you announce your relaunch. Is there anything else that you're doing to try and kind of reassure customers that they'll be perfectly safe and that you've got, you know, you've looked at all those aspects?
I mean, we're looking at just being a model of the social responsibility and making sure that we are as safe as we can be, and certainly far safer than the general market. I mean, we've got a walled garden where we have a control. It's only a daybed product. It's only bottle service. There's no service to the bar. So everybody is having their own friendship group on their own daybed. And we have the lead contact of every single person on that bed. And then we're looking into the legalities now. We're hoping that we can get the contacts of everybody on that bed and then keep it for a month or so. And so we're going to have absolute data, which won't happen in the outside world. We've got much better cleanliness and hygiene rules than you could actually have in an external beach bar or an external street cafe. And we're going cashless. So it's a controlled environment, and I think we can be much safer than the outside world. So we're quite encouraged by the product we can leave, and it really is. It's not the same product as last year, and that's the point. Is, you know, there's a lot of people going, well, we're not putting the same product into the market. Nightclubs in Ibiza at the moment are not opening, but that doesn't mean there isn't a product that can open in a nightclub. There is. It's just you have to change the product to fit the circumstances. And that's what I'm finding a little bit frustrating about the industry, is just because you can't do your usual product, why can't we all try and create something, a version of, or something different? Because that would help.
Yeah, it would certainly get some business going back again, wouldn't it? And Nathan, what about the longer term prospects? I mean, we've talked about how the pandemic and safety concerns will shape people's travel habits in the next few months, maybe to a year. But do you think it will have any impact on sort of travellers' longer term priorities? I mean, your business obviously relies on getting lots of people together, having a great time. Do you think that things will kind of snap back to normal after a while, or are you kind of having to think about how you would change your product longer term?
Yeah, I think it will change a little bit, but I think it will go back with a few changes. So, for example, what we're doing is we're creating a party hard travel app. So one of our directors, Paul Stanya of Hangout on Holiday, he's basically created us a standalone app which enables all of our customers to download the app, and it's a great communication channel. So if there were any safety problems, we can just send a push notification straight through to the app, and it gives our reps a place to communicate with the customers without doing it face to face as well. So we're doing that. And then another thing which we're doing is we've created some technology called Easy Order. So it's basically, we're giving it to free for all of the partners that we work with, where it's basically a hybrid of Wetherspoon's app, Deliveroo, and McDonald's. So it's basically, it enables the venue to upload their menu onto a site which can be branded. They can go on to, the customers would go in, select their table number, and just order stuff straight from the menu. So it stops people hanging over bars, big crowds in the bars, and similar to what Andy's doing with the bed service, it just enables smaller venues to be able to do that also.
Perhaps we can be a customer, let us know more. That's great.
It's interesting how this is actually pushing forward some changes that perhaps would have happened in the longer term anyway, but it's really prompting people to rethink what they're doing and whether there's a better way of doing it. And Donna, I mean, I think one of the interesting things that may potentially come out of this is that, you know, we're seeing a lot of uncertainty in the jobs market, and a lot of those are on furlough and perhaps at slightly greater risk of redundancy fall into this younger age bracket. So are you expecting any increase in gap years or customers looking for extended trips if they, you know, if the jobs market just doesn't go their way and they decide they want a bit of a change, a bit of a fresh start? Is that something you're anticipating over the next couple of years?
Yeah, definitely. And I think we do tend to see a rise in gap year and sabbaticals when there is an economic downturn, you know, for obvious reasons. I think also, given the uncertainty around the universities and whether they can actually have physical lessons, I think we'll also see quite a rise in people deferring for another year. So I think that will also stimulate the gap year market. Our product's a great one for people looking to travel for an extended period of time, particularly if they're doing a gap year. It's their first time traveling alone, gives them the opportunity to sort of really make new friends, build their social skills. And maybe people are looking for a working holiday visa, you know, eventually when Australia and New Zealand, you know, open their borders, I think it will be a place that a lot of people will go to. You know, the COVID rate there has been very low, and obviously a popular destination for working holidays as well. And I think with, you know, Contiki, it offers the opportunity to sort of have test some of the different destinations that you might think you want to settle in, but, you know, try them out first and then decide where you want to be based, you know, based on having a real experience there.
Yeah, great. So I mean, it obviously just gives a good kind of guided option for people who are maybe nervous of going and doing that big trip first. And yeah. I guess you get a lot of people kind of doing back-to-back tours and things as well. So
yeah, we definitely get them. You know, we've had a few that have done sort of 5, 6, 7 Contikis back-to-back, which is amazing. We get others that do maybe a Contiki, travel a bit, and then do another Contiki. And a lot of people will meet friends on their Contiki and then go off and do travel together, with the new friends they've met. So it's a great way of meeting new people.
Yeah, absolutely. And then thinking about agents, obviously a lot of them will be watching this, and what kind of advice would you guys have for what they should be thinking about when targeting this sector? So obviously you can't just do what you would do to target your other customers. You might need new marketing techniques to reach this audience. You might need to brush up on some new product knowledge, particularly if you've not sold hugely to the millennial market before this. So how would you recommend agents try and get a foothold in this market and remain relevant to that younger demographic?
I'd recommend they talk to the agency side of our business and let us help them. No, I mean, we are looking more and more into how we can help and stimulate youth, because clearly travel generally is going to start from a footprint of youth. So what I see as one of the opportunities in this is the value of the market that ourselves and Nathan and obviously Contiki is just a much bigger giant in many ways, but the sort of niche markets that we have in youth are more valuable than they have been for a long time. So I think people need to start thinking about differentiated product that targets a market that wasn't maybe worth their bother before. They didn't think it was why not just wait till they're 30 years old and they've got a credit card with some spending power on it. Seems to be, I mean, if I look at Ibiza, that was the attitude of everyone in Ibiza, was, you just get them to 30 and then we'll steal them. And I'm going, once they get to 30, I'll give them you, because I've got this market that is, we're alone. Sometimes it's good to be a big player in a market that not many people cared about. I suddenly think that a lot more people are going to care about this market. So that'll be good for youth, but it will hopefully provide opportunities for people like us, like Nathan, like Contiki, that are strongly in this market already.
I think there's a great way, a fairly easy way to target this audience is through existing customers. Maybe most of your customers are sort of 40 plus, but they've obviously got kids, they've got grandkids within our market that they can target, and they're looking to their agent, who they trust, to recommend a product that's right for their children or their grandkids, and who, through a trusted relationship. So I think there's an opportunity there to go out to existing databases and understand who you could target. I think from our perspective, social is obviously huge. The digital generation, if you don't have social platforms, and definitely something that you should be looking at. We're running a series of webinars at the moment on through our Facebook agent groups, where you can learn more about the product, ask us any questions. And I think, as Andy said, reach out to our teams. That's what, we have trade teams. We're all here to help. And whether that's one-on-one training, whether that's group trainings, how to use our agent website, always here to help. And that's what the team are here for.
Yeah, I think actually going out and experiencing it as well. I remember back in 2016, I had actually been to Ibiza, and I was trying to sell a holiday to someone on the phone to Ibiza, and it was like, "Oh, is that near the Egg?" And I was just like, "The Egg? What's that?" I had to look it up, and so now basically every single person who we've got in the office has been a rep for Party Hard Travel before, and they've got extensive knowledge, and they can easily talk about it and sell it. So I'd say actually experiencing the product. So who knows? After this, we might do a fam trip, Ibiza Rocks.
Yeah, what it reminds me of when we were running Mallorca Rocks, we had a street team, university team. Callum, he's actually done incredibly well. I think I forgot his company, but he's done very well since. But he was looking after a street team for us. And I remember being sat in a meeting and I was going, I am a bit concerned that we pushed Mallorca Rocks so hard. Do people actually realize that Magaluf is in Mallorca? And his face went absolutely white, and he'd been probably doing the job for 6 months. And I suddenly went, my God, our own team didn't even know that Magaluf was in Mallorca. And we were selling Mallorca Rocks, and we just switched our search engines and started putting the word Magaluf in. And what a result. It's amazing how you can just, if you're not living it, feeling it, you just miss things.
Yeah, it's that first-hand knowledge. So wouldn't it be amazing if agents were among the first kind of people to get out to some of these destinations and come and report back to their customers and actually reassure them and build their confidence that way by saying, look, I've just been, and you know, this is the experience in the destination. So
well, I think we've got the capacity at the moment, so please.
You've got a few spare room. No, I mean, that would be an amazing thing to happen. So let's keep our fingers crossed that agents are able to go out and experience the products and report back to their customers pretty soon. I'm afraid that's us running out of time, but I should just finish off with, you know, one last quick question. You know, talking about agents traveling again as soon as they can, where would you guys be going on your first trip post lockdown? I mean, Andy, I would imagine you might be going to Ibiza, but
I'm obviously in Ibiza, so to me it's probably getting out of Ibiza, you know, more appealing. So, you know, going back to London sounds nice. So, you know, I'm probably not the person to be representative, because I'm looking at my swimming pool as I'm speaking and just dodging the sun.
Yeah, you're the other way around. You want to come back here. How about you, Donna and Nathan?
Well, I was actually due to go out on a fam in June out to South Africa on one of our trips, which sadly obviously didn't happen. So I'm desperate to get back out there and experience, you know, I think for me, being out in nature, getting to do some adventure sports, and also the opportunity to give back and work with some of the local communities as part of our Contiki Cares initiatives. I think, you know, more than anyone, it's the local communities that we usually work with that are going to need our help to get back on their feet. So very important that we help support them.
Definitely.
Me and Jodie will just be doing the rounds in our destinations. So yeah, just seeing how we can help the businesses adapt in resort if we can, and yeah, just help the customers feel secure when they're coming out, and then push that marketing out.
Great. Okay. Oh, well, thank you very much, guys. We really appreciate your time and all your excellent advice for targeting the Millennial and Gen Z market. So thank you to Andy, to Nathan and to Donna. Really appreciate your time, and we'll see you next time. Thanks very much.